Now, the 2018 Ibrahim Index of African Governance was released recently. It showed that Ivory Coast, Guinea, Somalia, Tunisia and Zimbabwe are among the 10 most improved countries. Now, this year's index focuses on the last decade, that's between 2008 and 2017, and looks at corruption, rule of law, human rights, job creation, education and health. Now, overall, Africa's governance trajectory remains positive. Almost 71% of the citizens have seen improved governance over the last 10 years. Mauritius takes up the top spot in the rankings, while Somalia comes last on the list at 54th place. But the index shows that despite strong GDP growth over the last 10 years, Africa has failed to generate economic opportunities for its booming youth population. Well, I sat down with the chairman of the foundation that released the index, Ibrahim, and began by asking him what could potentially happen if governments ignore the youth.
Massive upheavals, because you have frustrated young people with no jobs and no hope for a job. The worst thing for people is to lose hope. And if they are desperate, what are they going to do? Just put yourself in your place. What are you going to do? You either sell the family possessions, cows and house or whatever you have, and pay a trafficker to take you across the Sahara and the Mediterranean, hopefully for a job or a future somewhere else. The chance you're going to die in the way or drown in the Mediterranean. Or you pick up arms and join a Boko Haram or whatever crazy group out there. At least it gives you salary and it gives you identity. You feel you are somebody, you are doing something. And that is very dangerous.
We are seeing some young people pushing into politics. We've seen South Africa, as the opposition is pretty strong and young. And we've seen, of course, Ethiopia, as what happened recently with the new Prime Minister. We've seen Liberia with George Weah. Surely we are moving in the right direction as a continent in terms of leadership and youth.
It's inevitable. It's inevitable. Look, if 60% of the population is below 25, this is the largest constituency in Africa. Africa really should be run by young people because this is the largest constituency.
Is there one particular country you can say, look, this is what this government has done and this is how they've improved the youth situation in the country?
Yeah, you can always point to countries like Rwanda or Ethiopia.
What did they do?
Economic growth, investment, create jobs. That's clear. But of course, this is not enough because people will immediately point out about the unrest in some parts of Ethiopia. And it was very interesting when I interviewed the ex-Prime Minister Haile Mariam a few months ago in our annual meeting in Africa. And he said, listen, for 15 years, we had the highest growth in Africa, or probably everywhere, 9%, 10% on average, every year, for 15 years. He said, but when people eat, then they start to ask, what about my rights? Mm-hmm. And that's a point. So this, a very interesting point is growth, jobs and rights. That's what we need to stabilize the situation going forward. Then we need to ask ourselves also, what is the way forward really? Is it sustainable that each family now have an average 6 or 7 or 8 kids? Is that situation sustainable? Why nobody is discussing this in Africa?